which is in the image, and then you can convert A to E, like a grammar mistake, and then you have a U, which is equivalent to U. So this is like nice to meet you. Let me go to one more example. Can anybody tell what are these? Or left and right?
So left is some kind of Pythagoras theorem,
Nice.
and right is, I don't know the right. There's some.
Um, so, so binomial distribution?
Yes. But it's
Yeah,
a Pascal.
Pascal's triangle, right?
Yes, it's a Pascal
But there's no
triangle.
numbers on it, right?
Well, it's not our typical numbering system.
I thought it
Yeah.
was a Pachenko game.
Okay, but you are able to get multiple interpretation of this. It's right, it's a Pythagoras theorem explanation, and the right one is a Pascal triangle, and there are clues which basically indicate why it could be a Pascal triangle. And these are like the things which are known in the ancient Chinese and even Indian mathematicians about Pascal triangle and how they represent it. One more question: what is in this image?
So sign with distances to locations in solution.
Yes. And what are you possibly doing? Like if you are looking at this image, maybe you are driving or something. And you basically, the idea is like you can basically draw many inferences of this. Although we agree that in the audience, many of us don't know the languages. So for example, the last question, what this likely mean, we don't know, maybe it's miles or kilometer, but we have basically narrowed down our search to a very limited thing. We also know like this is a signage, and possibly we are driving or using navigation somewhere. Also question like, are there more than two cities that are closer than Basel? So you can know, yeah, there is, because these numbers are there. And there is ordering also generally when things are represented. So just from this image, although we don't know the language and all, we are able to get some reasonable reasoning questions and answers. So this is a claim, and I'm not sure this is 100% correct or partially correct, but this is somewhat I feel like language is not necessary for all kind of reasonings, and knowing language is not sufficient for all reasoning. So you can reason without knowing language also, and language is not always necessary for knowing all kind of reasoning. And what I think, and even this is taken from Professor Dan Roth at UPenn definition of somewhat a reasoning, is like he thinks reasoning is a computational problem where you basically assign values to multiple variables and account for interdependencies between them. So for example, in the first case, we basically look at each letters and the images and all, we assign values to them. For example, n is n letter, plus mean like you are basically concatenating, and I image ice mean like you are assigning it ice value kind of thing. So you are doing some computational there. And then you basically connect them and you try to basically interpret the meaning of them. So you basically get parts information, you make their prediction possible, and then you try to basically combine the information as a whole to look what is it. So you predict in part and then you try to combine information to get to the final answer. So this is just a general comment about like the first line, although it's like a little bit overstated in that paper, but that's somewhat like I wanted to pin out, like reasoning is more than a language. Like you don't need language necessary for doing reasoning. Now let's start with the talk. So the talk is logic driven classification for low resource setting. So I will explain what I mean by low resource and what is logic driven classification. And this is a joint work with Bloomberg and Triple IIT. Uh, so let's start. So before starting, so I know many of you have not much background in NLP. So let me just introduce a case study task, which I will use basically for this problem. So the task is called textual inference or textual entailment problem. The problem is you are given a context, which could be a sentence, table, or something else. Generally, in this case, we are dealing with sentences, and you are given a hypothesis about something. And now you have to say, given the context, is the hypothesis entail or contradict, which means whether it's true or false. For example, in this, the kid exclaimed with joy, the kid is happy. Now, this is entail problem. I purchase a new car, I'm super angry. This is not entail contradictory problem, because when you purchase a new car, generally you are happy kind of thing. So also there is a fine line, like textual entailment can happen. There is a borderline case also, or there is confusion kind of thing. So let's call it like the most possible label kind of possible, we given a context for a hypothesis. So whether the whether hypothesis entail or contradict by the context. Now let's look at low resource problem. So low resource, what I'm talking about is low resource languages, and the problem is like we lack label data for doing supervised training on low resource languages. So in fact, like for languages which has lots, which are spoken by lots of people, I didn't cite a paper, like you can look at it like State and Fate of uh, linguistic, I forgot the title, but State and Fate of language uh, in the world. So in this, basically they talk about like how there is multiple language which are spoken by a huge amount of community of people, but we don't have much technology as well as like data, supervised data to build that technology on those language. So this is the problem which basically kind of thing. And why this is a problem? Because there is annotation limitation. And why this annotation limitation? For example, if I want to create a data set about some language, say Gujarati, which is a Indian language which is spoken in the state of Gujarat, I need some people who really speak Gujarati, and they are like, I have to find those people and I have to get them basically annotate. Example, I have to find first unlabeled sources of information which I can give to them to do the annotation. And secondly, doing this expert annotation can be expensive in some way. So how there is always an annotation limitation, especially for low resource kind of languages. Also there is technological limitation, because right now, although we have very good neural models and we have very state of art performance, but most of these performance are limited to somewhat like English data set and English settings, and they are not very effective, although there is some success in transferring knowledge from those models to a low resource languages. There is multilingual BERT, XLM Roberta, but they are only shallow successes on this. There is not much like very good successes in this kind of like language, across language domain or transfer learning kind of thing. So this is the main kind of problem behind this work, and we just did a simple tiny bit of work in this, which I wanted to present in the next slide. So one solution which we thought and which is already people has done is like is the data recasting, which could possibly solve a low resource language problem. We also look at like logical constraints, which can basically improve consistency and help in low resource setting. And also, how can we basically train, like as I told you about reasoning, you can basically get prediction of the part, and somehow those parts should basically give you the answer of the full, the final thing which you wanted to know. So this is like joint or connected training objective, and this can even independently improve the prediction of the parts. For example, if we somehow basically get partial correctness, we know that the last is meet you, then I can basically say that the middle image is ice, basically then it make nice. So basically it also improve the prediction of the independent part connected there. So first, let's talk of data recasting. What is data recasting? So data recasting is simple. You take, somehow you have a low resource language and there is some data, source label data about some task. Now what we can do is we can take that task and convert them into another task or phenomena. Uh, Obviously for doing that, you may need some semantic rules or linguistic property where you basically can use to basically convert them into another task. And this has a power because you can also convert multiple sources of data as well as task and phenomena to a single problem. I give you example which is there in the right. So this is the data about reviews about products, and basically it says like has good streaming quality and the annotation is positive. Now if I wanted to convert to the problem which I discussed earlier, which is inference problem, I can say that this product has good positive reviews from the user. Now my context is has good streaming quality, and my hypothesis, which I wanted to see whether it's entail or not entail, is the product got positive reviews from the users. Now I can also use some other labels which is not the actual label of the data set, like negative. The product got negative reviews from the users, and now this could be not entail. So this is just one simplistic way of doing like data recasting. You can also do some like paraphrasing and other way also of this to convert more better recasted data kind of thing. So the idea is basically this is a classification problem, and somehow I basically convert them into bunch of uh, recasted NLI, which is same as textual entailment problem data set, and they are all connected. So I also use negation. For example, the product did not got positive reviews from the user. Now this is not entail because the product got positive reviews. However, like the product did not get conflicting reviews from the user, this is entail because it's a clearly a positive review kind of. You can also take multiple phenomena, like you can take sentiment analysis, affective event, and all of them can be converted into a single problem, which is textual entailment. Now, obviously, this is not foolproof. There are multiple problems with this. One is like it lack linguistic diversity. So you can see that the sentence is little bit like the product got positive reviews from this user, product got negative reviews from this user. It's like little bit like unnatural kind of thing. It depends on how effort you put in basically writing those semantic rule, how much paraphrasing you do, how much linguistic diversity and properties you basically incorporate. So they can be little bit unnatural. And also, if you look like here, we are not annotating from scratch to basically create a data, recasted data, but somehow we are putting some effort in basically rule creation. But that's, I think, is limited compared to like basically individually annotating or creating a new example. So this could be one of the effective solution for basically creating data set. Now one might, and there's several questions about it, like how could this data be useful in doing something relevant, because it looked little bit artificial and not so natural in some sense. So let me dive into the problem and how we can use this data. So what first step I did is basically I take the original data set and I basically recast it into multiple pairs, and then I did a textual entailment model, which is basically predict whether given a hypothesis C comma H, whether I can get the entail not entail prediction correctly or not. So P1 is basically the entailment probability and P1 dash is the not entailment probability kind of thing. So now in this case, I have 8 sentences, so I will get 8 probabilities of entail not entail. Obviously P1 dash is equal to 1 minus P1 uh, in this case. I can also take the original data set and do a direct classification to directly predict what is positive. Is the data set label is positive or negative? This is basically prediction among like these 4 labels. What is the actual label of the data set of the sentence? Now, one thing if you notice in this thing is if I have, for example, so I did this on Hindi data set, which has lots of unsupervised data and a very few label data kind of thing. So I'm just converting them into English sentences, translated them into English sentences for convenient. So one of the context is he cried over his lost pet, and the actual label is sadness, sad. Now I can basically convert 2 hypotheses, which is he is happy, he's not happy, and now I can say it can have multiple possibility labels. So I can say like given this context, he cried over his lost pet, and he's happy. I can have a not entail uh, also as the entail probability, and for he is not happy, I can also have an entail probability. Now you can see 2 things, like the first 2 sentence, if I say he's happy and I give the label not entail, and he's not happy has a label entail, then they are both correct. Okay, it might happen like there will be cases where I first predict like not entail, and the second cases is not entail. They that is totally incorrect. Like both the hypotheses indicate that the thing is incorrect. So now, but you can see there is a relation between these hypotheses, which is basically that they should be opposite of each other, because the semantic phenomena which basically used to create this hypothesis H1 and its conjugate H1 dash is negation. So if the label of one of them is not entail, the other one should be entail. And if the label of first one is, for example, entail, the second label is not entail. And this doesn't guarantee that it will be correct, but it guaranteed there is some kind of consistency between the label. So the model is not somewhat contradicting with its own belief. You don't need to know the exact prediction, but you know that the label of these two should be opposite of each other, because they are arguing about 2 opposite information in the model. Similarly, you can also have statement which are like paraphrases of each other, and you say like the paraphrases model should be same to each other. They should not vary in the prediction kind of thing. So in this case, since the properties negation of each other, the label should be opposite of each other. So we call this consistency because if the model is consistent with its own belief or not. Now, how can we use this information? So if you remember, I was doing this textual entailment where I was taking in pairs of these information and trying to predict the label. Now I can use this information which I have, which I says like, if this is the context, he cried over his lost pet, and hypothesis he is happy, and the prediction probability for entailment is small p. And for the second statement, he cried over his lost pet and he's not happy, the prediction probability is p dash. Then I know that p plus p dash minus 1 should be equal to 0, because I know p equal to 1 minus p dash. The If first one is entail, then it implies the second one is not entail. So first one is true, then the second one is false. And if the second one is first one is false, then the second one should be true. So somehow these two pairs are connected to each other, and I can use this information as a regularizer for the model to basically learn this connection between each other. So we can do some kind of like a constraint regularization between all these pairs of model across pairs to basically try to regularize the model to learn that the negation function is like, if you have a negative hypothesis of each other, then the model should actually flip the label. There is one more thing which we can do, which is basically, can I take all these predictions from the same context and somehow use them to basically predict the original label? Sorry about the editing, it's not very clean. I did it in the morning only. But for example, this the context, he cried over his lost pet, and I tried bunch of hypotheses which are all generated from a label set of this thing, and I got bunch of prediction. Let's say not entail, entail, not entail, 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 not entail. Now you can say two things about this, and let's say I use this thing, I can definitely, without any ambiguity, say that the emotion annotation is sad, because there is multiple evidence of it. For example, he is sad is entail, this is first evidence. Then for other, he is happy, he is angry, there is all of them are not entail. Secondly, for not, the reverse of thing is all entail. So there, all the labels or all the hypothesis context pair label indicate that the emotion or the final classification is sad. So there is correct with no ambiguity, and there is consistent, there is no contradiction between the pair. But this is not necessary to happen when you basically do with the model. It might happen you get something like this: for he is happy, it says not entail; for he is not happy, also it say not entail. Now somehow the model, after using this, is, there's a lot of indication that still in this example to say that it's sad, so it somehow predict this. So although we get the correct answer, but there is ambiguity. So for particularly there is inconsistency in the pair 1 and 2. So if one is not entail, then two cannot be not entail. It should be either, it should be entail, or the one should flip it label. Similarly, there is inconsistency between 2 and 5. He is not happy is not entail. That means he's sad should not be entail. So there is like, in these two pairs also we can say that the labels are not, the model is somehow like contradicting its own belief, like it's not consistent with his own prediction. So it might happen like the model is so much inconsistent that it can finally give the wrong answer also. So it's incorrect, it's ambiguous, as well as inconsistent. So all these possible cases are possible with this thing. So, so if you have any question, you can ask.
So I have a question. So you've been
Yes.
so talking about this for like English language, and you've been saying you can do the same thing in Hindi, or I guess potentially. Oh, so you can't do this in Hindi, or is I thought, are you planning to, you know, figure out these extra rules that will help you with these so low resource languages?
Yes.
Is that the
Yeah. So actually,
And-
this, yeah, I got a
and so like this, so I'm not an expert in languages, especially not outside of English. Is so negation something that is like this present in all these other so languages? Are there languages that don't have negation?
Okay. So there are rules which are present in some languages which are not present in other languages, and they may have linguistic variety. For example, expression of negation may differ in languages and languages. But yeah, negation is there is English. Like for example, I've shown all the examples translated in English. The only reason I'm doing this for Hindi is basically people have done recasting on English, and what they found is like the models, which are like the Roberta and the pre-trained model, they actually do well on this recasted data also. They get around 90-94% accuracy. So the improvement they're achieving, so somehow the model is pre-trained so well that it knows what negation is and it's able to do all these things well. So the improvement there you are getting is not very like significant or something like for, but there are also phenomena. For example, I'm just taking negation here, but you can take something like a semantic phenomena, even fairness kind of thing, and maybe in that cases these rules are more often broken, and there you can fix it in that settings. So but yeah, the language specific here only come because I wanted to show this can be used for somehow a low resource language, because you can do data recasting there easily if you have some source of label data and you can combine multiple data set to do that thing. But yeah, this is general, you can apply in other languages also, but will you get gain from this thing? That's not guaranteed, depend on how good the original model or the pre-trained language model in that case.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay, so let me continue. So the next thing one can do is two things. One can even first train a textual entailment model and now take all this entailment thing which we have this binary output and then try to predict basically the label. But who said we can do this independently? We can all do this in a joint fashion also. So we can first try to predict the textual entailment label, and then basically use those labels probabilities to predict the final classification. And instead of doing this independently, you can always do this jointly. And there are some benefit of doing this jointly is because if you do this jointly, somehow you know that the label is sad from the final output prediction, the label loss. You somehow indirectly also tell what the label of these things should be there. For example, if I tell you the emotion annotation is sad and I basically hide the binary output, you can basically tell what the label of each of these things should look like in the textual entailment problem. So the idea here is like I take a true or false basically question, true or false uh, task, and I convert them into a multi-choice classification, multi-choice paper kind of thing. So if you know the multi-choice answer, you can basically also answer the true and false. And if you know all the true and false, you can also possibly answer the multi-choice question in this case. So so we can do this thing jointly, and this can basically also enforce basically this constraint between the prediction of uh, textual entailments which are coming from the same context hypothesis. So the final model, what we did is we basically recast the data. We did the textual entailment thing. We also put constraint regularization. We can also do this jointly and then basically see how this basically predict the original label. So we did this on 4 data sets. These are all Hindi data set of various phenomena. One is sentiment, one is about emotions, one is discourse analysis, and one is topic modeling. And I have shown the number of classes as well as the amount of data will be there. Obviously, the recasted data will be depending on both the number of classes and number of examples you have. It will be like direct multiplication into twice of that. So and we basically keep the train test split as same as the original classification model, so there is no kind of label leak or something happening in the data set. Before going into result, I wanted to have like everybody would have a question like why I'm going this hectic way of like doing two level classification. Like I generally just took the direct classification model and do the task. What is the benefit of going the round the clock? Like I understand like we can do recasted data and we can get an NLI model and all those things, is because direct model can sometimes learn spurious patterns. For example, in the same data set, I don't know which data set this example is from, and this is about like sentiment thing. I think it's a sentiment thing, a product reviews, and you can see like there are non-senti words which are highly indicated of the label. For example, battery. If you have a sentence with battery, it can say that it's negative. Doesn't matter like what the sentence. I can say the battery of the product is super awesome, but it still can say negative because there is high correlation between the lexical labels in one thing in the other, and this is just one kind of spurious pattern. There is like hidden spurious pattern in language, how the data annotated. There may be functional words which are leaking information and all. So direct model can leak information. However, in this case, since there is a label balance in the text, so I have a has good streaming quality. I have intel and not intel both in equal quantity. There is no possibility kind of a label. Somehow it has to basically look at both the hypothesis and the premise to get to the right answer. It cannot basically take some of the words in the thing and decide basically the label as. So in short, what I want to say is like there is less chance of spurious pattern leaking because there is balance in the textual entailment task, because there is equal number of entail and not entail for the same context which is there. Has good streaming quality, has good streaming quality, has both entail and not entail in equal number of examples. Now let's dive through some of the experiment. So the first question we want to say is like what is the performance of models, the state of art models on this recasted NLI data. So I did mention we use XLM Roberta, which is one of the state of art in basically doing multilingual this pre-trained language model for multilingual languages, and Hindi is one of the languages which is there, and this used for basically doing many tasks on Hindi language. So we use that, and we also want to check, does our consistency, regularizer, and joint objective improve the NLI performance? So this is what we get. We get around 74 to 76% accuracy on all the data set. But once we had consistency regularization, we drastically improved the performance. We also add if we don't have consistency regularization, just use the joint objective, it's also helping us to get to the right label. It's basically enforcing indirectly the consistency between the textual entailment task. This is just the textual entailment task. So I'm just checking the performance on the textual entailment task. And if I do all of these together, I get huge improvements compared to the original model on all the data sets.
So
Yes.
can you remind us what the PRBH HDA?
Oh, these are data set. These are just data sets. So PR is product reviews, BH is Bhav, it's like emotion thing. BBC, I think, is topic modeling. HDI, I forgot the name, full form. So these are data sets, and the y-axis accuracy, and the task is textual entailment. And I'm basically adding consistency regularization, joint objective separately, and then I'm adding all of them together to see how the performance improve. Yeah. Secondly, I check, is the consistency regularization helping mitigating this inconsistency kind of thing. So basically for negation, I should basically get opposite label of the prediction of the original thing. So the inconsistency is there in the model, first of all, with the original textual entailment around 15 to 11%. But once I add consistency regularizer, it dropped, which is expected because there's a regularization which is helping to drop that thing. A joint objective, although it's not directly doing it, it's doing this in an indirect way, so it's helping. And if I do both of them together, I'm able to basically reduce the inconsistency decently well.
So if you had to, so you surely have like a regularization parameter that tells you how much to weight this. If you had cranked this all the way up, this should be 0 in the orange curve and the green one, right?
Yes, you can basically do this thing, but then there is also a issue of like how, so inconsistency doesn't guarantee you correctness also. So you want a model which is inconsistency as well as like correct. That's the best goal we can have. So what few things which is not there in this plot but is there, like when you do basically inconsistency, what happening is like these models are either going to completely correct thing or completely incorrect thing. But the probability that goes to more correct thing is much more. Like it, for example, if my earlier model was 15% inconsistent and now it's like, for example, 6% inconsistent, and then I can say like around like 70% of this loss of inconsistency is actually going to the correct label overall prediction. And and only also 40% if this is going to the incorrect label also. And now this incorrect label actually is opposite to the original loss function. So
Yeah.
if you
So-
basically try to decrease the consistency too much, it's basically opposing the original prediction label in some way. So the loss there increases.
Yeah. So you tuned the weight of this prior
Yes.
for the previous plot, and then this is what shows
Yes. Yes.
unadjusted
Yes.
consistency. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
great.
Yes. 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 So yeah, this is somehow like, obviously you have to do some kind of a tuning to have a balance between this, but you are right. Like if I basically ignore everything and just put the consistency, I can make it zero completely. That's possible.
Yeah. So it seems like this gap in the inconsistencies you fixed almost entirely accounts for the improvement on the previous slide.
Yes, it's count for improvement on the previous slides, definitely, but it doesn't count on the improvement on the next slide, which I'm showing. Like, does it basically help in the original retrieval of the ground truth? So now what I check is like, if I do ground truth classification first independently, I do textual entailment, get the probability, and then do the classification. And when I do jointly with consistency regularization, does it basically also do the classification task better? So first, let me put the direct classification where I don't do this recasting and directly predict the label. So this is something what I got. Now, if I take the textual entailment and then independently do the classification, no consistency, nothing, I get pretty bad performance. So somehow the model is pretty good in multi-choice question answering, but it's not good in like true or false statement about the same thing. Now I basically add consistency regularization, try to catch up with the direct classification prediction. I add joint objective, which actually really help in getting prediction because it's directly optimizing for the main task, which is the direct classification of the label. Now, if I add all of these together, I can get more improvement, and I can even beat the direct classification model in this case. So this is the paper conclusion, which is basically we created some analyte data set by recasting, although they look artificial, but you can basically use them to constrain the models. And these are like weakly supervised constraints because you don't need the exact label. You just need like the two pairs should be opposite of each other. And this could be used somehow to remove inconsistencies and increase the textual entailment and the classification prediction. Secondly, you can use the task to basically try to get the answer of the other task, which is the direct classification task from the textual entailment task. And you can do this, use some more technique of joint training and also using more constraint regularization in doing this. We have some results in the paper which basically tell like this does not just basically give you better performance, it can also help you increase interpretability because now you have an intermediate textual entailment labels with you, which is the extra prediction you are getting for the same class. So you may predict, yes.
Sorry, I had just a question. I
Yes.
kind of missed what you said towards the end of your previous results.
Yes.
Like, so you said that if you just had like the ground truth prediction task, you were doing very poorly, right? So what did you say after that? Like,
Yes.
what do you
So if I have ground truth, I'm getting something like this, which is the brown bar. And if I basically take the textual entailment, first do the textual entailment task, and then use those labels to basically train a classifier to do basically the prediction. So I take like not entail, and all in the same order, obviously, and then basically use them to basically without constraints and without joint objective to predict the classification task. There is a huge performance gap, which is this gap. So what I wanted to say is like I was asking here true and false questions about the same thing, and here I'm asking multi-choice question among the labels. So I say whether it's sad, angry, happy, or neutral. And here I'm asking he's sad, he's happy, he's this in a pairwise fashion, like whether it's true or false. And the same model, which is obviously it's not exactly the same models, but it's like built on the same pre-trained architecture, is not able to do as good as it was doing on the original task if you do direct classification. And some suspicion is this because it's using some spurious patterns in getting to this answers also. And but once you add consistency regularization, then you improve. If you do joint training, you are somewhat giving indication of the label together with the original task. So it's basically like the both tasks are now interdependent to each other, so they are connected now. So, and if you do all of this together, like you constrain on the textual entailment as well as do the joint training, you somehow beat the original classification task also. So this was the conclusion. Yeah, so the takeaway I would say this from this paper is like we can, the idea of like automatic data set based on rules is not so bad. Like although it look unnatural to create, but they have several benefits. For example, they can be robust to some artifact and spurious correlations. You can use the way you created the data set can be utilized to basically put some structure regularizer. Like in this case, I put consistency. I say one is true, then the other should be false over the recasted data to basically improve model inconsistency. Uh, One idea is like, can we have a data set which has both QA and TA textual entailment or multiple tasks built on the same set of examples, and somehow we are constraining them or doing parallel information transfer among each of the other in the same fashion kind of thing. So it's something look like a multitask learning kind of thing, but it's not exactly multitask because you are using like constrained over language also. Also, it's good to have this thing because it can improve the representation, performance, and interpretability. Because like I now have intermediate textual entailment label. So we basically find why initial model was getting something right and now it's not getting right by looking at the textual entailment label in between, which is a side result which you get apart from the original thing. And lastly, which we didn't try much, but this should be other interesting thing. If we have diverse semantic phenomena, like one I take temporal reasoning or common sense reasoning, numerical reasoning, and all of these multiple data sets and I all combine them together and then try to basically improve them. Does it basically build a model which can do all of these things together better? So this is something which could be tried out. Like, can we have a neural model which can basically build on multiple sources of information which are about different things, and somehow they are basically linked in a single task, and you can learn from that with constraints and all. So but this is something thing which we could look at and all. So in the paper we have some more results about interpretability, how it helps. Also some class wise analysis, we show that every class we get improvement. It's not like it's biased towards one class, so basically it's improve one class but it basically do very bad on the other class. We also show that for
Classes here are what? Classes are the final classes, happy,
yeah,
sad kind of.
yeah, for this task, like is the happy, sad, and all, like in all classes we are getting improvements. It's not like that the improvement is on the cost of, like for example, the sad. So it basically mess up all the label for the sad class and it got good thing for the happy class, for example, let's say. We also show that it might be useful for when you have less data, like semi-supervised setting. Although the result was not super good, so I'm not sure how much excited about it. But yeah, you can basically have less data and somehow constrain them together to basically predict the final output and also improve the individual output. So yeah, so the basic takeaway is like we can predict things in parts and somehow we can connect those parts by some domain knowledge, and this should be somewhere how we create the data or we know about the data, and then we basically say this thing. And this is something which is like structure prediction or inference. Like you can build a cycle if you know like what parts are there in the cycle image and how they are located to each other. So you can basically build a drawing of cycle just by using this information. And this is somewhat like reasoning, related to reasoning, how we can basically have reasoning with individual parts prediction, but somehow we are joining them together to basically get the final prediction. Yeah, this is the work. Yeah, these are some of the references for the data set which you use. Yes. If you have any question or anything, I'm expecting one question which I think like somebody should ask, but let's see.
So I've got a question. I'm so not sure if it's the question, but so so I've seen this other work that attempts to use so language models to do translation between languages, right? So for instance, it'll take the glove embeddings of kind of English and Hindi and trying to align those on top of each other. this allows you to translate. Could you? I mean, it seems like this this information might be useful in some way. Could you use the translation to construct to try and build the paired NLI task from the English thing where you get 99% accuracy to a version in Hindi, and then you have some kind of lost term that says you expect these to be similar to each other. I mean, it could be the sense does not make sense in Hindi if you do the translation, because it's not the results are not perfect by so any stretch, but maybe this even helps the translation, right? If it's not sure which word, it tries a bunch of different words and it sees where it gets the so similar performance on a number of NLI tasks where that's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so does this make sense? Does this fit into the big picture you're thinking about with this project, or is this kind of like a little bit too far off from what you think this sort of idea could be extended to?
uh, I don't know whether it's too far or like this thing, but I definitely think this interesting thing, like because this recasting can give you some flexibility in like you can take multiple different diverse thing, like here you are changing language and task, you can also change phenomena and task to do this thing. And this could be interesting in word embedding. For example, you know two directions like good and bad, and you know directions of some other thing, other stuff. And somehow you can say like, so if I say let's say you know direction of nationality or not nationality but some direction of some orientation about in the word embedding in some other direction, and now you have a something which is combination of these two things. Then you expect like which vicinity this embedding should lie. It cannot lie in like, so if one is like for example good bad and other is about some label, then you know that the embedding should lie in between those two things. Like for example good battery, and you know battery lie in x direction like negative x, and you know good lie in positive y. Now you know that good battery should lie something like in the which is first quadrant. It cannot lie in the second quadrant, it cannot lie in the third quadrant, it cannot lie in the fourth quadrant, because you know like the good direction is this and bad direction. So this is another interesting way. Basically if you want to semantically compose lexicals, and you know they compose directly like good uh, battery or something like this, there also you can use something like this to constrain the model. And obviously across language this would be interesting if you can see uh, for example even embedding transfer across languages. Like if there is multiple directions in each of these languages, they should basically when you align them they should all be consistent to each other in some way. They should not like be inconsistent in way. So yeah, there is multiple way you can incorporate this inconsistency, but you have to think cleverly like how you will try to incorporate this regularizer and how will you make it work also. So but yeah, this is something could be interesting to do in some sense. Yeah, this is just a small part. Like maybe we can do on other languages, we can do on other phenomena and all, but just like how recasted data could be used with the regularizers to improve performance. Yeah.
Yeah. So are these are the recasted things you're doing? Are they just based on a like you're doing the translation yourself because you are an expert and you speak both languages, or is
Yes.
it some automated way of doing it?
So this is rules which we are using. So this is very simple rules. For example, I've just used negation, but if I want to have more linguistic diversity, then I can do use that basically to. So these are just somehow like rule-based systems or rule-based templates which you can use to basically recast. Now you can also use a model to recast, but then it again bring like how much you can rely on this model. For example, I can use a paraphrase to recast thing, and then I should say that the paraphrase prediction should be same as each other. Like, so I can say I can convert active to passive thing, and then I can say that the prediction should not change because of that. Now it depends like how good you are in the active passive thing, because maybe possible that you change the context of the or semantic to the opposite of the task which you have in that. So that is something like you can also rely on models which would do this automatically, another neural model which do this conversion and all. but then you should be careful like the error you are bringing from that, in that sense. Other ways, like you can ask expert to write rules or templates and use those templates across all data to get this thing annotated
That
in some way.
isn't that very hard to do? Like, I mean, if you're in a new language, you really need a lot of domain knowledge, right?
Yeah, so in this case, I'm just using one of the semantic phenomena like a not. So, but generally, like if you have, for example, this is simple. Like I agree, it can be tough as well. It can be easy. For example, in this case, it's very easy because I just said the product got and then the label reviews from its users. So it's just one thing which is changing in all of these sentences. If you look at or not is there, but it's not necessary. This should be like everywhere it's possible, but at some places like it you can basically, these rules are not like so tricky kind of thing also for doing the
But I
conversation.
thought your original like kind of like the story that you said, right? Like of
Yes,
like that you have lots of knowledge about English, therefore you want to transfer some of this stuff. So you're
yes,
not
yes,
actually doing that aspect then. You are only
yes. So
manually
I'm
doing.
assuming that we have a data set around like in another task in the Hindi, and then I'm using simple rules to convert them to another task to do that thing. And yeah, your argument is maybe that convergence is not that simple, which is how I've shown here in the Hindi setting. So that might be true. So these data set are already converted these into textual entailment by recasting. So I have to look how they did it. But yeah, it requires some effort. I do say not all of these will be perfect also, that I can also say like when you convert for some languages. But yeah, it's not that hard to basically convert them. And also depend like the thing which I was saying, like if you want to have more natural thing, like if you want to have a conversion with, but you have more linguistic diversity and more naturalness kind of thing in this thing, then it might be you have to write lots of other rules and kind of thing to do that thing. But basic ideas like write rules which are more generalizable to a lot of data kind of thing. So this is the same of how we do data augmentation or adversarial training kind of thing. We take one example, we find a lot of similar examples, and then you basically use some technique to basically convert them into adversarial examples kind of thing. So here the technique, the rules I'm taking same here to convert them into another problem or NLI problem kind of thing.
Anyone else have questions?
So what was the obvious question we were supposed to ask?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So obvious question which my advisor asked was, so it looked like I have convert a multi-level problem into a binary problem, and I'm able to outperform that multi-level problem, and why I'm able to do that. So I have two answers for it, why this problem differ. So this is, if you look like this is a multi-class classification. So I have a sentence, I have to predict 4 labels out of one of these, 1 out of 4. And this is like a binary problem. Basically, I say whether this is positive or not positive. So each of these are, let's say, ignore the negative part for not, for example, let's say, then each of these are basically a binary problem. So why the binary problem prediction is doing better than the multi-class classification? So isn't like I'm maybe doing something. So there's two things which I want to say is first is like when we do this multi-label, multi-binary classification, one versus all or one versus this, and then do this, we are basically using different model for each of these. Here I'm using same model, which is a single model which do prediction on all of these things. So it's not like multiple model I am training for, like, because there you have to train models on positive and not positive reviews. Then you have to train model for like negative and not negative reviews. But here I am training basically a model which do all of these things, binary task in a single model. That's one difference. Secondly, uh, another uh, difference which I feel is basically there is consistency which I'm using around the labels, which is not that possible where you somehow do that thing by using like margins and like basically saying that one label should be above this thing and all. But that's a little bit easier in this case to do because we are using a single model kind of thing. But there you have multiple models. If you even want to you can always impose consistency there, but now you have to basically like give output of somehow information from one model to the another model during training. So that's another difference which is happening in this setting. So this was somewhat like the obvious question, like how can this binary problem is why is how is different from like converting one versus all to a multi-class kind of thing, like what's the difference? So here the difference mainly is this is a single model. This is not like different four models for the same task. I don't know, like maybe this is something I also thought a lot, but this is something which I thought is a possible reason or difference, like first obvious difference between the two things. Cool.
I mean, I guess the question is, if you're training for the binary one, that could be often harder than if you trained for the multiple thing and then you had to answer the binary question. Right? Like somehow having training data with multiple labels gives you more information than.
Might be this is so I guess that's one reason, and that's because like you know that if positive is there then the rest of them should be negative. So somehow basically that information is somehow conveyed while I'm training all of them together in some way, because the label of them direct basically like which is the main label kind of thing. So I agree, like that's somewhat it's maybe possible that it's doing some kind of a calibration inside. So here the calibration is not happening that good, but here the calibration is happening because we are training on the same thing. But I'm not sure, there's something which needs more further investigation.
Cool. So any other questions from students? Okay, so if not, let's thank Vivek again, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this on short notice. And,
No problem. Yeah.
see you.
See you. Bye.